What the fuck just happened? I think I, like many, just woke up to the craziest news we've seen in the UFC. Volk versus Diego Lopes is finally happening, and it's not just happening, it's happening for the undisputed belt. Yes, you heard that right. Not an interim like previously rumored, it's for the real thing. And it's funny, just hours before this, I was talking to my boy Roma about my theory on this fight happening, and well, it happened. Just not exactly like I was expecting. And the obvious first question is, what the hell happened to Ilia Topuria? The guy vacated the belt. Yes, vacated the belt this early into his career at 145. He literally just knocked out Volk, knocked out Holloway, just got one title defense, and just peaced out. He literally said 2 months ago that he wouldn't vacate the belt to move to 155 because he hasn't had the conversation with the UFC yet, but I guess those conversations happened way faster than we thought. Ilia claims that it's just way too hard to make 145 now and that he's going to permanently move up to 155. And I know it just happened and I'm not trying to exaggerate, but I do think this bombshell of an announcement, this one abrupt move from Ilia Topuria, will completely change the trajectory of two divisions and will have a cascading impact on the legacy of many UFC greats. UFC history just completely changed in one move. Let me explain. Okay, firstly, let's look at the impact of Ilia Topuria's move on the featherweight division. I think everyone thought that Ilia was going to dominate the 145-pound division for a very, very long time. The guy is 27, knocked out featherweight goats in Volkanovski and Max Holloway, and we all presumed that if he fought Movsar Evloev or Diego Lopes, he would have taken care of them pretty easily as well. And all of that just got erased in a matter of minutes, as with a permanent move to 155, this opens the door to a lot of potential champions at 145. Obviously, the first two potential champions at 145 will immediately duke it out at UFC 314 in April, and the results of this fight will have an insane impact on not just the featherweight division, but potentially in the all-time rankings. For Volkanovski, imagine what this does for his career and his legacy all-time. If Volk somehow makes an insane comeback this late into his career and becomes a two-time champion at the age of 36, if you somehow didn't have Volk as your featherweight GOAT, now it's going to be undisputed. But he wouldn't just be an undisputed featherweight GOAT, I think he would pretty much be undisputed top 5. Obviously, we don't have time to go through the top 10 lists all time and argue, but if we look at Volk's resume, if he does beat Diego Lopes for the belt, he would have two-time champion status on top of 5 title defenses, on top of a monster 12-fight win streak, on top of 3 times beating Max Holloway. He would surely be in the top 5 all time, I think, edging out that spot from Islam, Khabib, DC, Stipe, or whoever you have there. That would be an amazing story and do wonders for Volk's legacy. On the flip side, what would this do for the legacy of the young, on-fire Diego Lopes? 2024 was Diego Lopes' year, with him knocking out Sadiq Youssef at UFC 300, beating Dan Ige in a short notice replacement, and then finally beating the shit out of Brian Ortega to end off the year. And if he does actually beat Volkanovski and actually does become the champion, I honestly think that Diego Lopes can have a pretty solid reign over the 145-pound division. I know that if he does win, it has to be Movsar Evloev next, as that was his first fight in the UFC. He lost that. Granted, he did make it really close and showed that he could go grapple for grapple with Movsar Evloev, and I do think this time around in the rematch, Diego Lopes can beat Movsar. But even in the case if Movsar Evloev beats Diego Lopes, I think Movsar is going to be the one who has a solid reign over 145. In either case, I think we have a brand new face to the 145-pound division that could reign for a pretty long time, because I think they beat pretty much every other contender listed here. Okay, let's get into the real fun, the lightweight division. The lightweight division, of course, completely shifts with a killer like Ilia Topuria at the top. And we will probably get an announcement soon from Dana as soon as he gets confirmation, but I think Ilia Topuria has 4 options. The first one is pretty obvious, the one everyone is anticipating, Islam Makhachev. This is the masterpiece waiting to happen and potentially the most high-level fight we will ever see, probably going to overtake Volk versus Islam for that title. And there's been rumors that this could happen as soon as June this year, but I highly doubt this because the problem is the Islam camp taking this fight. It seems like Khabib is Islam's director when it comes to his career. He's the one who originally planned for Islam to fight Volk in Australia for his first title defense to also be crowned pound for pound, and he's the one who's probably going to stop Islam from taking the Ilia fight this early. He told Henry Cejudo here that Islam keeps getting faulted for defending against 145ers, and they would only give into fighting Ilia Topuria if he beats a legit guy at 155 like Charles Oliveira. And yeah, Ilia Topuria could fight Charles Oliveira to prove to Islam and Khabib and their camp that he is legit a contender for 155, but I think there is a much better guy that Ilia Topuria should face in order to convince Islam and them that he should fight for the belt. Arman Tsarukyan is my pick for Ilia Topuria's next opponent. It just makes way too much sense for the #1 contender position. Arman was supposed to fight Islam and is now waiting for his next fight. There were rumors that he was going to fight Michael Chandler, but with Michael fighting Paddy next on that 314 card, Arman doesn't have a confirmed opponent. And if he wants to get to the belt back, shutting down Ilia's chances at greatness would probably convince everyone that he deserves another shot at Islam and a shot at the belt. But for Ilia, beating a guy like Arman would change everything. Arman is obviously a legit 155er who beat Charles, beat Beneil, and is on a 4-fight win streak. And if Ilia makes a statement against Arman, he will be undeniable, and Islam would be forced to accept that fight at some point. And the thing is, I think Ilia should be favored to do so. Arman is a big guy and his grappling is great, but I think Ilia, with how talented he is, can gain the muscle necessary to compete at 155 again and transfer his grappling skills and his strength to compete with Arman's grappling. And for the striking, forget about it. So long as Ilia keeps this fight where he wants it to be, which is boxing range, it's over for Arman. Arman has never been the striker or especially the boxer Ilia is, and I think there's a good chance that Arman is getting knocked out by the devastating power of Ilia Topuria, setting up that dream match between him and Islam Makhachev. So again, Arman Tsarukyan is my pick for Ilia Topuria, as it just makes way too much sense. They can duke it out for #1 contender while Islam Makhachev defends his belt against Charles in the summer. And then by the end of the year, if Islam wins and if Ilia wins, everybody will be on board for this dream matchup. But speaking of Charles Oliveira, actually, I think Charles Oliveira is an interesting pick for Ilia Topuria. Again, I don't think this is going to happen because I think Islam wants Charles in the summer, but if Islam decides for whatever reason, Ramadan or what have you, to not fight soon, Charles may want to jump the gun. And then we would probably have a Charles Oliveira versus Ilia Topuria fight next. And we've seen it before. Again, not saying that this is realistic or this is going to happen, but Khabib did say if Ilia beats a guy like Charles Oliveira, then they would have to accept a fight with him and Ilia would probably get it done too. I love Charles Oliveira. Who doesn't? But it's clear that Ilia Topuria's momentum is rising exponentially, and he's a train with no stops right now. But most importantly, of course, he has insane power in his boxing again. If Ilia just neutralizes Charles' ability to take a fight to the ground, which I think he can, then Ilia Topuria will 100% catch Charles clean. Charles Oliveira just gets caught way too much with his striking style. We saw against Islam, Gaethje multiple times, Dustin multiple times, and Michael Chandler. But the difference with Ilia Topuria is that his power just doesn't TKO people or rock people. He puts their lights out like Jeremy Stevens. He's 100% the hardest hitting 145er, and if and when Charles Oliveira does get caught, I don't think his chin can handle it. So this fight is an option, not a realistic option, but an option that takes Ilia Topuria to that Islam Makhachev fight nonetheless. And I've seen some rumors that he could fight Dustin Poirier, but that is a really wild card move. I don't think this would happen realistically, but it would be an amazing boxing fight in the UFC. Dustin says he has one more left in the gas tank, one more fight before he retires for good, and he said that he only fights legends, and fighting Topuria for your last would be legendary, but man, Dustin is gonna die in there. Dustin's boxing is great, but at his age compared to this young killer, I don't know if he can compete now. Ilia Topuria will shut his lights out, and I don't want to see that for his last fight. Though for Topuria, this would be a great move. Beating a 155 legend would 100% prove he deserves a lightweight title shot, but I wouldn't put too much credence in this potential matchup. But whatever the case might be, whether it's Ilia Topuria taking a contender first and then getting Islam, or getting Islam directly this summer, I think this fight, besides being an amazing fight and probably one of the greatest fights we'll ever see, will probably dictate who is the greatest of all time. If Islam Makhachev adds another big name like Ilia Topuria to his resume, dude, he'll have a stacked resume with probably 6 title defenses and then Ilia Topuria on top of that. Then we have to look at it in the flip side. If Ilia Topuria somehow beats Islam Makhachev this early in his career, we really have to be talking about how good Ilia Topuria is and be putting him up with the greatest of all time. In either case, this fight pretty much will mark who the GOAT will be. But anyways, what do you guys think of this groundbreaking move from Ilia Topuria? What will happen to the featherweight division? What will happen to the lightweight division? And will Ilia Topuria versus Islam Makhachev happen this year? I'm so excited. This news was insane to wake up to, and I'm, as a fan, just really interested to see how Ilia Topuria's move will have an insane impact on the UFC. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.